Are you ready to take your organization to the next level and become a game changer in your industry? Then look no further. Welcome to Yeukai Business Show, where we bring you the world's top business thought leaders to share their secrets to success, from leadership development to finance, marketing, self-development, human resource management, and much, much more. Our guests reveal the strategies, tactics, and mindsets that have made them so successful. So let's dive in and learn from the best in the business. Hello, and welcome to another great episode. I'm super excited about today's show. I know I always say excited, but today I'm truly excited because we are going to be talking about new ideas because, new ideas is what keeps the world going. And if you discover the new idea we're going to be talking about in this area, it could be the thing that is going to help your business. So I'm super excited about this episode. But before we jump on to talk to our guests here, and can I remind you to join the conversation that is going on in our community, because that's where we have the follow-up questions from our previous guests. And, we answer some of the questions that we may not be able to answer during the conversation. So make sure to do that. And also, if you're still thinking about starting your own podcast, we've got a very good training program that we put together where we will teach you how to start, how to scale, and how to monetize your podcast. And believe me, podcast is the thing at the moment. And you want to learn from the people that have been doing it for a long time, like myself. I've been doing this since 2015, so you can do the maths. And we've got systems that works, and we've put them in such a way that they're easy to use, and you'll be able to do that. Okay, enough of that. I know you will be in the community, and I know you're going to check that out as well. Let's go straight to our expert today. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. We're truly grateful that you're here. And, for those who are yet to come across your work and, or those that know you but don't quite know how you got started, would you be able to tell us a little bit about your experience in terms of your background in this area, your education, and your experience in this area? If you can, maybe talk about a few things that you have done outstandingly for your customers or your clients, so that people will picture what is it that you are doing today based on your background, your education, and your experience in this area.
I was born and raised in Kent, England, studied economics at Southampton University. I had an unintended gap year as I struggled to get my first decent job after graduating, but eventually got a training contract with an accountancy firm near Southampton. 3 years later, I was lured by the bright lights and big salaries of London, worked there specialising in corporate tax for a couple of years before setting up on my own back in my hometown of Tunbridge Wells in 2009. I made all the mistakes most new business owners do. I hadn't decided what my target market would be, so I tried to be everything to everyone. Inevitably, this meant I didn't appeal to anyone. After a tricky first year, cloud computing was just starting to take off. I stumbled across the free agent software and rode their wave effectively, falling into the niche of freelancers and contractors. Over the decade that followed, business grew organically to about $1 million turnover and a dozen staff. Things were great, better than I could have imagined. But I never had any great desire to be rich, and my enthusiasm for the business waned. Increasingly, the staff were more keen to grow the business than I was. This really isn't a healthy position for a business. So after considering a few options, in 2021, I sold a controlling stake in the company to an employee ownership trust. This seemed to give the best of all worlds. The business remained independent, staff gained control without having to pay in their own money. I got a decent payoff, albeit over a prolonged period, and I could step back or remain involved in whatever way suited me and the staff. 2 years on, the business is doing fine. I still help a bit in the background whilst trying to help other business owners sell their companies to an employee ownership trust like I did.
Awesome. And what sort of roadblocks did you face earlier on, and how did you overcome them? And I know that many of us on this journey have had to face those roadblocks. And the reason, again, that I ask this question is I want the listener, Bill, to get a picture that whatever you're going through right now in your business, it's not isolated. It's just not you. A whole lot of us as entrepreneurs, we have either gone through them and overcame, we're on the other side, or are still going through those stuff today. So, and when you have that knowledge, if you're anything like me, it gives you courage that you're doing the right thing. So what sort of roadblocks did you face earlier on, and how did you overcome them?
I had a tough time getting my foot in the door of the accounting world. I did fine at uni and naively assumed that as a graduate I'd walk into whatever job I wanted. I do like to think it was more naivety than arrogance, but certainly I was in for a rude awakening. It was a horrible time for me. I bounced between various minimum wage temp jobs with periods on the dole in between. My sort of opinion of myself, my self-worth plummeted. However, I do think in the long run this probably was a great thing for me. I do feel like everyone needs occasionally to have life break them effectively so they can then come back stronger and learn from it. It's one reason why, as much as possible, we've recruited juniors and trained them up. It's a way I can give an admittedly small number of people that same break that I had. It always pains me when I see job adverts looking for a trainee but insisting on 1 to 2 years prior experience. How are people meant to get that? So yeah, the next significant roadblock for me was getting the business off the ground. You sometimes hear the phrase, if you build it, they will come, which frankly I think is rubbish and just doesn't apply to business in the modern world. I'm sure a few listeners will recall early days in their business where they got their website set up, maybe put a job in a local paper or an advert on Google AdWords or whatever it may be, then sat there waiting for the inquiries to come flooding in. Doesn't tend to happen that way. So again, it was a rough year for me. My wife in particular and a handful of friends were very supportive, but I did feel like a lot of ex-colleagues mocked me a little bit. I imagine when I handed my notice in, they were perhaps a bit intrigued, maybe even slightly jealous that I was starting my own thing, going off, a brave new adventure. So then, when they heard that it wasn't an immediate success, wasn't going that great, perhaps it gave them a bit of smug comfort that they had made the right call to stick in their safe job. I do think that while some business owners set out with a very clear vision of what they want to do, where they want to be, for others, they're more like a little river meandering along. They follow a certain path, then hit an obstacle, and rather than try to fight through it, you redirect your flow accordingly. Often it's good to have a bit of both, to have a vision, but also the flexibility to adjust it if or when circumstances suggest it's wise to do so. I was very much the latter end, the sort of the river wandering around, allowing nature to be pushed about. Try a bunch of things, see what works. If it doesn't, stop it. If it does work, press ahead and do more of it. I also strongly think that people should never be criticised for failing, because at least it means they had a go. My bugbear is people who regularly say, I could have done that, when hearing about someone else's success. Increasingly, I'll point out in quite a blunt way that whilst maybe they could have, they didn't. They sat on their backside doing nothing instead. I think having the idea for a business is 1% of the success, if that. The rest is having persistence, adaptability, and a whole heap of general business skills to make that idea become a success.
Awesome. Certainly, there's a lot of great lessons there. I will speak to Bill for a moment and any of our listeners. Look, success leaves clue. I know we talk about this all the time. What you've just discovered there, maybe you could apply that in your business. Think about how can you apply what you've just learned there. And if you have further questions, get into the community, get an accountability partner in the community and help you to do just that. Coming back to you, what was your very first major breakthrough in this area?
The first major breakthrough was teaming up with FreeAgent. It's a cloud-based invoicing and bookkeeping app aimed at the small one-person businesses. We were very much right place, right time with them. They had a small but growing following of end users. They didn't, however, have many accountants on board with it, as most were heavily involved with old desktop equivalents like Sage and QuickBooks. I chuckle about how I seemed to become their poster boy. I was an accountant, but I wasn't an old man with a grey beard. At least at the time, I was young. and I seem to get made out to be the trendy cutting edge of accountancy, if such a thing exists. Prior to that, I'd had to go out and chase prospects, trying desperately to convince them that I could help them. Now I had small business owners who use the software come and find me to help them with their more formal filings. So the inquiries now were flooding in. I claim no credit in discovering that niche. I literally fell into it. What I did, however, do well was notice this and refocus my efforts accordingly. Very soon after, my website changed from "We help businesses of all shapes and sizes within a 10-mile radius of Tunbridge Wells with whatever they might need" to "We help free agent using freelancers and contractors across the UK." Yes, we'd limited our market a bit in terms of types of business, but this increased the appeal to those clients. They felt we were specifically set up to deal with them. Plus, with cloud computing opening things up geographically, it meant our potential market grew significantly.
Awesome. So how is the world different now than when you got started in this area?
Cloud computing is certainly no longer a novelty. I think from statistics, there's still something like 50% of businesses using spreadsheets, that kind of thing for bookkeeping, but certainly a huge number are now using cloud-based apps. So this means the competition to win those businesses has increased significantly as well. Being an accountant that works with cloud bookkeeping apps is no longer a differentiator, it's the norm. A side effect of this is client expectations have increased massively. Now their accountant has access to their live bookkeeping data at any time throughout the year. So gone are the days when a client would send you all their records once a year, you take a few weeks processing it, send them back with an invoice and be done for 11 months. Clients now want support throughout the year. It can be tricky managing those expectations, especially for the accountants at the low to mid end of things price-wise. You need to be careful you don't end up a busy fool, spending your days answering non-stop questions from clients who aren't even paying you that much. One new differentiator we have now is that as of 2021, the firm became employee-owned. It used to be my company, but I sold most of my shares to an employee ownership trust. This means the staff now control the company and are entitled to future profits. While some clients admittedly won't care, they just want their accountant to do a good job, many love that we're employee-owned. It's progressive and also gives them the comfort that whichever employee they're dealing with actually cares about the success of our business, in turn meaning they'll care a bit more about keeping the client happy.
So there may be people who are not quite clear about what is involved. Would you share with us perhaps very easy ABC of what we're talking about?
Employee ownership isn't a new concept, but the employee ownership trust model is relatively new, at least in the UK. It was legislation brought in 2014 that made it start to become more viable, but it then took a few years before word spread and more businesses made the leap. Business owners need to be absolutely clear that transferring their business to an employee ownership trust means it will no longer be their company. The staff will collectively control it going forwards. The founder can still be involved in the company. Indeed, it's fairly normal they will be, at least for the short term, but they will no longer have supreme power. It involves you selling your shares to a newly set up trust. As that trust is brand new, it doesn't have any money. However, as the trust now owns the company's shares, it is entitled to the profits of the company. So the selling founder gets paid potentially from any retained profits the company's built up prior to transfer, but also most commonly from future profits. The staff are effectively buying the company with a mortgage. Touch wood, the company makes a profit. It has to use some, typically a fixed amount of that profit to make repayments to the founder. Any excess the staff can enjoy. They might decide the best use of it is investing further in the business to grow it, to hopefully increase future profits, or they may decide to pay it out as profit share bonuses to themselves as staff. I often consider an employee ownership trust the guilt-free way to step away. What I mean by that is often the main option open to business owners who want to exit is to sell to a trade buyer, typically a bigger competitor. Whilst this might mean a big pot of cash for the founder, it normally means the business brand is lost, often with many staff being made redundant. This isn't always the case, and certainly I know some business brokers get grumpy at me saying this, but a lot of founders are nervous that it could happen, and certainly sometimes it does. Some big businesses might consider listing on a stock exchange, but that's not viable really for businesses at the smaller end. Management buyouts used to be common options for the slightly smaller businesses, where the up-and-coming stars would use personal savings or borrowed money to buy out their more senior colleagues. MBOs aren't as common as they used to be. I tend to think a key reason for that is with house prices being the way they are relative to wages. It just means your typical 30 to 40-year-old simply isn't in a position to raise cash to buy out the shareholders, as they're struggling to get a 10% deposit on a home themselves. The EOT model, or Employee Ownership Trust, solves these problems. The business remains independent, and it's unlikely staff will lose their jobs. Equally though, staff don't have to put their hands in their pockets to buy in personally. Plus, there's a couple of significant tax perks that come along with it, as the government are keen to encourage EOTs. As long as certain criteria are met, the selling founder doesn't pay any capital gains tax on the sale. Also, when employees receive their profit share payments, the first $3,600 per tax year is tax-free. For all these reasons, it's easy to see why employee ownership trusts are gaining popularity.
That's very, very clear. And I love the simplicity with which you communicate, these concepts with everybody. I'm curious, how did you come up with such an idea, and how has it made an impact in, or maybe to your targeted audience? Is this really new, perhaps, or have you brought two ideas together? May you just take your time and let everybody hears you out.
My relatively new business, GoEO, is far from the only firm helping business owners sell to an EOT. However, most of the existing providers offer a bespoke service at a premium price. This is great for any bigger or more complex scenarios who need that expertise. However, I'm confident there's a sizable market of slightly smaller companies, those with perhaps 5 to 25 employees, that kind of level, where everyone could benefit from the employee ownership trust model. The issue is, at the moment, it's very expensive to do the transition due to the professional costs involved. It can be prohibitively expensive for those slightly smaller businesses. We hope to change that. By using templates and modern technology, we're able to give more straightforward clients everything they need to do the transaction at a fraction of the cost. We cover the financials, the tax, the legals, all in one affordable package. It certainly won't be suitable for everyone. Indeed, we have fairly strict criteria to ensure the client has a situation we can confidently deal with. But for those that do, the wheel doesn't need to be reinvented. Certainly when I was selling my own company, the lawyer I used asked me loads of questions about choices I might want to make. My response to the vast majority of these was, what's normal? I simply didn't know. So I'd perhaps use the analogy of buying a car. Sure, there will be some people who will know lots and want to have a car tailor-made to exactly what they want. However, the majority of us know we want something to get us from A to B and are flexible on the rest. The salesperson doesn't ask how many wheels you want. Nearly all cars have 4 wheels, as society has deemed that's what makes sense for most situations. So we basically do the same with EOTs. There will of course be some key variables that will change from case to case, but for a lot of options, people are happy to go with whatever the majority do. It gives the comfort that if lots of other people have done it that way, you're unlikely to be making a daft choice.
Indeed. And why should people switch over to this way of thinking, or maybe way of doing things?
Employee ownership has the potential to transform your business and also society more generally. The capitalist system has its good points. It encourages people to try their best to improve, to innovate, but it also seems to be increasingly pooling wealth in the hands of a tiny minority. Some people own companies, they own a thing of value, which often grows and gives them income, that they invest in more assets. The tax system seems to reward this, with only very modest tax rates on investment income or capital gains and no national insurance. Other people work for companies. They typically own little. They have to keep working day in, day out to get that paycheck so they can put food on the table. Bizarrely, governments tend to tax this earned income far more heavily than the investment income or capital gains that richer folk typically have. So the people who are rich enough to own things get richer and the poor stay poor. Of course, many of the listeners may well be of the view that they were poor and they created the value in the company they own. Surely anyone could do that, right? Perhaps, but you'll also be aware it was far from easy for you. Possibly you got support that not everyone had. Possibly you got lucky. Certainly I know that whilst I didn't always find it easy, I did have support where it mattered, and luck definitely played a part. Employee ownership helps to rebalance things. It won't magically eliminate the wealth divide overnight. If nothing else, for those who transfer their companies to an EOT like I did, not only would they likely be reasonably wealthy from company profits before they decided to go EO, but they typically sell the shares, not gift them. Hence founders certainly can do very nicely financially out of an EOT sale. However, longer term, it gives a much larger number of people some of the benefits of ownership. They'll all be entitled to share in profits the company makes. Sure, given those profits are spread across more people, it means none of them will individually be made rich, but that's no bad thing. A large number of lower earners will get a modest boost to income. That means lots of people with a bit more money in their pocket, hence lots of people spending a bit more in other businesses, hence those businesses make more profits. It's a virtuous circle. This compares to already rich folk receiving more income, which they'll tend to stash away somewhere safe rather than spending it. Sure, you may say that's sensible, planning for the future, but it's less good for the economy than if they spent it. Certainly the concept of trickle-down economics is absolutely gibberish.
Yes. So is somebody maybe asking right now, maybe listening and say, is this the end of the road, or are you still going to come up with these discoveries? I guess I know the answer to this, but I just want to hear, from where you stand and how you're analyzing the terrain. What's next? What's next for you?
Employee ownership trusts are still relatively new, at least in the UK. Barely anyone transitioned to an EOT in the first 5 years of it being available. Things have only started to pick up in the last few years, but I suggest we're perhaps just now drifting from the innovators to the early adopters in terms of Rogers' innovation adoption curve. The whole industry is still learning. Indeed, to my mind, it's both good and bad that there's hardly any rules. It means businesses in this space are all learning, all experimenting. We are gradually seeing some things start to be considered best practice, but even then, there's always a firm that breaks that trend and does well. My days advising freelancers and contractors realistically is behind me. After more than a decade in that industry, I do feel like I've done that, got the t-shirt, so to speak. But the world of employee ownership is my passion now, helping people build businesses in a more progressive way, helping to bring everyone along for the ride.
Just a quick follow-up on that. What developments do you see on the immediate horizon in this? And maybe we could explore if there are going to be any long-term, or even some cool developments just around the corner.
I think over time, more standards of best practice will be accepted. There will be more norms. To my mind, this will be a great thing for the sector, as in some ways it can feel a little like the Wild West out there. It's both exciting and scary in equal measure. As EOTs grow rapidly in popularity, one concern is increasingly it may attract negative press. There'll be founders doing it for the wrong reasons, leading to businesses failing and staff losing their jobs. There'll be advisors encouraged to sign off excessive valuations with the same likely outcome. Whilst it will be painful for those involved in any companies it happens to, part of me feels it may actually be good for the industry. A few high-profile, these ones failed and here's why stories might scare some founders into getting more realistic expectations. On a more positive side, as people become more aware of employee-owned companies, it may impact their choices. Employees choosing to work for companies controlled by an EOT rather than their privately owned counterparts. Customers choosing to buy from EOT companies. Not just to help you feel warm and fuzzy inside, but because by everyone working there having a stake, they'll all care that little bit more. Staff should care more and be treated better. Customers should receive better service because of it. Plus, of course, the profit sharing should spread income better across more people. This can only be good for society, something fighting against growing wealth inequality. Employee ownership certainly isn't communism. It's still capitalist in that EOT companies are aiming to make a profit. The key difference is how widely those profits are shared. If EOTs become far more common, it shouldn't lead to any reduction in innovation. If anything, the opposite, as far more people will realise they'll benefit from any great new ideas they have and implement. I really do feel like employee ownership is the healthy future for capitalism.
That's brilliant. Thank you. Appreciate that. Now, we're coming toward the end of our time here together. What haven't I asked you that you would like to share with everybody, perhaps that is pertinent to our business community here?
I'd encourage founders to only think about an EOT sell if they really care about their staff. It might sound daft, but as there are so many other perks, there's a real risk the founder loses sight of what's required for this to work. If the deal doesn't work for the staff, it doesn't work for anyone. As founder, you typically only get paid in full if the staff have the ability, drive, and determination to keep the business going successfully for multiple years. There's 3 key things the staff will need. These are 1. the power and freedom to run the company. Some founders simply can't let go, hanging around like a bad smell. It's not always best for the founders to disappear soon after transfer. Indeed, often they can add a lot of value, but they need to have the humility to understand what is adding value and wanted by the staff and what is just causing irritation. Be aware that the staff, out of love for you, may not feel they're able to tell you. 2, they need the support to run the company. Remember, the people taking the business forward may not have had any great desire to lead. Possibly they were happy being diligent employees, doing as they were told, and now leadership is being pushed upon them. Certainly, we'd strongly recommend not pushing this on anyone who's clear they don't want it. Also, we'd recommend the business seriously consider things like coaching, potentially for the exiting founder to help them come to terms with their new reduced role, but also for senior staff, helping them cope with their new responsibilities. And finally, number 3, it needs to work financially for the staff. Founders may feel like they can virtually choose their own sale price. Even though you typically need some kind of external professional to sign off on it, in practice, if you ask enough people, someone will. The problem with this is, the higher the price, the longer the business will have to pay the majority of profits to the founder, in turn meaning the less that's available for staff to enjoy. If the staff can't see a positive outcome for them within a foreseeable timeline, they may decide it's not worth it and to seek work elsewhere. If a few of your key staff do this, you may find the business quickly dies. Of course, if that happens, what does it mean? It means no more ongoing payments to you for your shares. So if you get too greedy, it may well backfire on you as well as the staff. In short, certainly it's better to get 100% of 1 million, say, rather than 10% of 2 million.
Awesome. I never like to finish without asking your final thoughts. What final thoughts do you have to help motivate business owners and the community here to navigate this area or to get started in this area?
If you've listened to this and think an employee ownership trust could be right for your business, great. If you're the founder, you're the one able to drive it forward. Do ensure you're happy for the changes it involves, most notably that it will no longer be your company. Also ensure you're happy it can work financially for you. If you're an employee, you certainly can't force it on the business, but it may be worth mentioning it to whoever owns the shares. Possibly it'll be something they could get on board with. If they show no interest and you don't particularly love the company you work for, when looking for jobs, keep your eyes peeled for any which are EOT owned. Also, whoever you are, if you believe it's good for the staff that they get rewarded properly for a business's success, consider shopping more at EOT-owned companies. On the whole, you should experience better service, and if nothing else, get comfort that if the business is making money from you, it's being spread evenly amongst lots of average earners.
Outstanding. Truly outstanding. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you spending time with us here. And, I never like to conclude without giving our guests an opportunity to share where our audience can connect with them. So where can everybody connect with you? Maybe you have a website or a very dedicated place where everybody can reach out to you.
If you want to know more about employee ownership generally, we'd recommend checking out the Employee Ownership Association. They're a not-for-profit organisation focused on helping the world of employee ownership to flourish. If you get to the stage you want to sell your company to an EOT, or perhaps you're a professional advisor who deals with companies who may be interested, my name is Chris Maslin. Hopefully I can help. Check out my business GoEO, web address goeo.uk. We're very much focused on making it easier and more affordable for the smaller end of the market. Typically businesses with 5 to 25 employees, turnover may be anywhere from a few 100,000 to a few million, and no particularly complex requirements. Basically just trying to make sure it's not professional fees being a reason businesses don't make this wonderful jump. Cheers.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. You can also find those links below this recording for you to access very easily. And I want to say thank you for being here, and also thank you for sharing this great information with everybody so generously. Truly outstanding stuff right there. And if you found the information here very helpful, imagine what you're going to find in the community. So if you are not yet a member of our community, or you've been a member of our community but haven't visited of lately, can I encourage you to go in and make yourself known, help other people, or ask questions that you may have. And I know, our guest, now and also future will be there to answer any questions that you may have. In a minute, our guests will be telling you how they will be helping you in that community for sure. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind you of our training program that we have put together on how to start, how to scale, and how to monetize your podcast. Again, you'll find more information in the community. And also, we've got our leadership training program that we have put together. My dear friend Trevor Stockwell, you probably are very familiar with him. He does some of the podcasts here. Has got this amazing training that is ongoing on there, and would love for you to participate in that as well. Now, until next time, as always, live well, live with passion. Know that the best is truly, truly, truly yet to come. Bye-bye for now. Thank you for tuning in to Yeukai Business Show. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode and have gained valuable insight and inspiration from our amazing guest. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review to help us spread the word. Also, be sure to check out our Leadership Ultimate Success Mastermind program, which is designed to help you and leaders in our community to do great things and support each other along their leadership journey. Until next time, live well, live with passion, know that the best is truly yet to come.